The Home Secretary Theresa May has criticised universities for being complacent about tackling Islamic extremism. The government's due to publish an updated version of its Prevent strategy tomorrow. That strategy brought in after the London bombings, and the aim is to tackle homegrown terrorism. Universities UK, it's the body that represents Vice-Chancellor, says there's no evidence to support the Home Secretary's comments. Let's see if anyone else believes there is a problem here. Douglas Murray is a journalist, Associate Director of a think tank called the Henry Jackson Society, and Jonathan Githens-Mazer is an Associate Professor in Ethnopolitics at the University of Exeter. Let's get the basic questions first. Douglas, is there a problem?
Yes, there's certainly a problem. We know that from the number of individuals who have proceeded from British university campuses to carrying out acts of terrorism. We know furthermore, because of the number of cases, weekly almost at times, of people who most people in Britain would rightly regard as being radical preachers, appearing, as I say, week in, week out, in British university campuses and spreading messages of intolerance, which would not be acceptable from any other group of people.
Jonathan, do you believe there's a problem?
No, I think, with all due respect to Douglas, I think that this is really a wrong-headed way of viewing it. Saying that there's a problem of extremism on campuses, or that somehow universities cause radicalization or terrorism, is a bit like saying, the elderly are going to die. It confuses cause and context, and, it's incredibly unhelpful, I think. Kind of panic making.
Well, what do you think is the situation? And is the kind of propaganda being put out in universities which Douglas refers to, or not?
Well, universities are full of young people, and young people engage with all kinds of different ideas. And I think one of the things that one finds at universities is healthy debates about very controversial issues, and the whole notion that there's a right-thinking public that should control what universities think or believe is both anti-intellectual and outdated.
Douglas?
Well, could I answer that? First, it isn't anti-intellectual, and it's not about freedom of speech. It's about saying that there are things that are against the law. There is speech that is against the law and illegal, which should also be illegal, whether it happens on university campuses or off them. Let me give you an example. Omar Khayyam, who was in charge of something called the fertilizer bomb plot, he was convicted for this several years ago. Omar Khayyam said in a surveillance tape, he was recorded this, it came up at the trial, said that the prayer room at a certain university he had been involved with, Brunel, he said there are lots of people at Friday prayers at that university, quote, actually planning things and doing them here. He said, yeah, bro, just blatant. In the sermon in front of hundreds of students, and you could see that people were like, they were agreeing with everything, That was what this man who was planning to murder hundreds of people said. He said that in front of his eyes and in front of the eyes of hundreds of students, there were people whipping up people.
Okay, Douglas, let Jonathan answer.
That is a very, very serious thing.
Jonathan.
But let's take the kind of panic-inducing document that was published by the Center for Social Cohesion by Douglas last year, which then tried to draw some kind of straight line between membership in Islamic student societies and the capacity for radicalization. So, this is the worst kind of research. It just plucks random individual cases and then says, look, we've proved our case. There's no analysis. There's no deeper understanding. There's no question of causation. It's this kind of shrill panic merchant, I'm going to choose a good fact to prove my case, which is no way to debate, no logical engagement on this kind of issue at all.
No, the two of you are not really debating terribly well at the moment because you're both talking across each other. But I'll come back to Douglas. What do you want to say now?
Well, firstly, I don't need to take any lessons in research from Mr. Githens-Mazer, who had to withdraw his own latest report from his centre in Exeter.
It's a good job you're not in the same room,
the fact is simply this, is that there are people like Mr. Githens-Mazer who would like to ignore a real problem that exists. There are others of us who believe that Muslim students should be treated in the same way as everyone else, which is to say they have exactly the same rights as everyone else. However, they do not have the right to invite people who contravene the law. If a student organisation invited neo-Nazis onto campus all the time, people would rightly call attention to the fact.
Okay. Make a point. Douglas, just let Jonathan come back on that.
Douglas, I'd like to come back and say, actually, Douglas and I agreed. If something is illegal, it's illegal. There should be equality under the law. But one of the incredible of things is that Douglas and the Henry Jackson Society now is in control of the all-party parliamentary group on Homeland Security. Now, let me ask you.
Well, no, I'm sorry, Jonathan, you're not here to ask the questions. I am, old mate. Thank you very much. That's Jonathan Givens-Mazer and Douglas Murray, who agreed at least that we shouldn't break the law, but on nothing much else.